Hey everyone, I want to welcome everyone to the new LNL Podcast. Today I am introducing the podcast for some reason and I don't really know why. We're here with, HBProductions and Koocai, the official creators of this program. We're also with the industrious The Big E15 and with our guest today, Mr. Koocai, who we will also probably be seeing more in next podcasts. Since it's our first ever podcast, we've actually decided to make it a bit simple-ish as a sort of layout for future ones. Just as a heads up, our channels are all linked below, as well as our Discord. So remember to smash those links. And hopefully I can get this right the first time, because we've done this a couple of times now and it didn't really go well. So let's go to our hosts. That's how you do an intro, boys.
Okay. Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was well.
Sorry.
As necessary for any good podcast, a bit of introduction to the boys that'll be filling your heads with gaming lore, and then some. Most of us should already be aware of our friends and the guy who introduced this podcast, Imperial Knowledge. He's got a great channel on lore, as well as discussions on other things that are a little bit more speculative. What do you got to say about your channel, Imperial Knowledge? The amazing Imperial Knowledge, I should say.
Well, I usually upload Elder Scrolls lore videos, but also, as you said, I upload some theories and discussion videos sometimes. I try to upload once a week, sometimes even more. The last times it's been a bit more, and I sometimes do features, and I do all sorts of Elder Scrolls stuff. So, I hope you'll give it a watch.
Next up, we have the Big E15. Big E, like the rest of us, does a lot of lore. However, that's also kind of a lie, because he does a lot more than just that. He's probably got a lot more than me to say about what he's capable and what he does. So I'm going to give him the mic and let him talk a little bit about it.
I'm not going to lie, when you introduced me as the industrious Big E15, I did the Richard Nixon peace signs. I don't know why. I know you guys can't see me, but yeah, I'm a Big E15. I do Elder Scrolls lore twice a week. I have also continuous series in No Man's Sky, Ark, and then I have one right now that's with Samurai Warriors, but that'll eventually change into Grand Ages again. So, biggest one though.
I should also bring up the man that's sitting closest to me, because if I don't, he's gonna definitely call me an Enwa or an Argonian slave. Here's Koocai.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Koocai. I'm pretty much the guy who's been making a lot of the content you've been seeing on the HBProductions channel. That also means the content that people hate and that people kind of like.
Not true. I do a few memes every now and then.
That's pretty much it. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic off to Big E15.
All right, yeah. So our guest today is Koocai, and he pretty much has a lore channel, and we're just gonna kind of explore his channel, see what he does, get to know him a little bit. So, with the questions, I don't know if you guys want to just want me to read the questions, or we can all just kind of go on with it.
It's up to you, honestly.
All right. Well, what do you do for your channel, Koocai?
Well, I like to think that I make quality, immersive lore videos for people to listen to and relax and enjoy. And I have a pretty strange voice, or a low voice, that I hope immerses people into the lore more. And that's about it.
Before we jump in a little bit further into asking Koocai, I want to mention that his voice is like narrator quality voice. So,
thank you.
All right, continue.
It's for the future, for your channel, or for other possible opportunities to grow.
Well, I want to keep increasing the quality of my videos. To do that, I want to improve my skill as a narrator, obviously, and I want to get higher quality footage, higher quality audio. Maybe one day in the future I might start streaming. I'm not sure though. I need better internet to do that. Yeah.
Got you into YouTube, and why this subject you're currently doing? Why'd you pick the Elder Scrolls?
Well, actually, originally, I only wanted to do playthroughs, and I would record myself playing, like Fallout 4, the Elder Scrolls or something, and then I would upload that to my channel. Turns out, that didn't really work, because if you want to do something like that, you need to have people who are watching you to begin with. So I decided, I'm going to do what I really want to do. I'm going to make really high-quality lore videos, and I'm going to upload that to my channel, and hopefully I'll get a lot of people who love Elder Scrolls lore, and maybe one day in the future I can actually make something out of that.
I feel that. I remember I actually started doing walkthroughs too at first, and then I had to switch over as well. It's pretty hard to start with walkthroughs. But explain your video making process.
First I have to sit down and think for quite a couple hours, or over the day. I'll just make a note to myself. I want to think about something that I really find interesting in the lore, and then once I've got that topic in my mind, then I start the researching process, and that usually takes around maybe a week or so probably to get the researching and the scripting done. And after the scripting is done, then I move on to getting footage and audio and all that stuff.
Well, outside of YouTube, what else interests you? Like, what do you do for fun outside of YouTube and everything?
Well, I've always wanted to get into voice acting, but that's more trouble. It's a lot of work. And if you really want to do something like voice acting professionally, I've read and I've heard from people that you have to have a background. Like, you have to have already done things. Like, you have to have things that you can show your employer, or else they won't hire you. So I didn't want to do that. That's something that I wanted to make my YouTube channel first, and then maybe that's something that I would do. But for now, it's not really something I'm planning on. Besides that, I really like animals. I like animal science. I like climate science. I like all kinds of science, really. Health and nutrition, that's something that I'm really into. I'm a vegetarian. I like TV shows like Star Trek. A couple other TV shows. That's about it.
Since you did mention the voice acting, do you have a specific voice actor you like to go to, or like in general?
Well, I really look up to Brian Delaney, the main protagonist in Fallout 4. Like, I've never met him or anything. It's just that I've listened to a lot of people talk to him. He's been on a couple of podcasts, so he's really one of the people that I look up to.
Interesting. Is there anything else you think we should know about yourself? Like, anything else in real life you think the community would like to know?
Not really. I'm vegetarian. I like listening to YouTube. That's what I spend a lot of my time doing.
If you don't mind me asking, I'm gonna interject here for a second. Who are your favorite YouTubers? Like, who's your go-to people to listen to? And also another thing, who do you hate with the most tiniest fiber of your being on YouTube?
Yes, the most tiniest.
Yeah.
Add something into a sentence.
I don't know if I want to answer that one. I don't want to start any flame wars, but and not to be offensive to any of you guys, but actually Zorkanov, Imperial Knowledge, is one of my favorite YouTubers.
Oof.
That hurt a little bit. Took a couple shots.
I'm just the king of YouTube, guys. Just don't take offense. Don't take offense.
True vest on if I do.
My 19,000 subscriber army.
I have an army of 19,000 subscribers.
Okay, but how many of them are 10-year-olds? Because if they're 10, we can't affiliate.
Well, I don't know. Actually, to be serious and not joking, it's actually a very small percentage of them who are young.
Yeah, so speaking of which, Koo, do you know what your age demographic is? Just like if you don't mind just throwing that out there.
I've looked at it, but I don't think that YouTube is showing them the correct information, because I just don't have enough people watching right now for it to get a big enough grasp of that.
Yeah, because right now, ours is like 40-year-olds and 30-year-olds, so...
It says that for some reason,
I don't think they're 40-year-olds.
It's 100% male, and the age is between 18 to 30 or something.
Well, my audience is actually 2% female.
Whoa, Zorg, slow down there. You save some for the rest of us.
Wait. I got something to say about that. As of yesterday, our audience is exactly 3.2% female.
3.2% of 0 viewers is still 0.
Ow, that hurt.
Sorry.
Chill out, man.
Okay, we gotta do exactly what KSI is doing. At Kuyo, we have to fight Imperial Knowledge now. We just gotta.
Yeah, Imperial Knowledge and his sister, like Logan Paul and his own.
There's the HP brothers versus the Sorkinov family. It's a great fight. It's gonna happen someday.
We'll do a podcast on that, you guys. Just make sure you watch. Pay us like $1 trillion, and we'll probably get to it.
Okay, so I think with that, we can hop into the next section. So, HB, you want to take it from here?
Yeah. Since we actually have Koo already in the hot seat, Koo, would you mind introducing our next segment and get us talking about what we're actually all here for?
Yes, the first topic of today is topic number 1, Gamescom 2018. The events that happened there, such as the Cyberpunk demo they had. Wait, that was at E3.
No, they also had a new Cyberpunk demo.
Cyberpunk demo happened at E3, and shortly after that, after the Cyberpunk demo happened, there was actually a leak of the audio during that, and that's what we're here to talk about for the first topic.
Yeah, okay, so I think I'll kind of take the lead here since I know about a little bit about this. But do you guys know about what happened at E3 and the leak with the whole audio stuff for Cyberpunk?
The only thing I cared about from E3 was that Todd Howard officially said, sometimes it doesn't work.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It was an amazing moment.
We will get it. We'll get into that in just a second, though. Don't worry. So for now, I just want to. This may not be nearly as interesting, but for those of you who don't know, basically CD Projekt Red is this huge. I think is it Swedish? No, it's.
It's Polish.
Yeah, they're a Polish publisher and developer. Well, Red is. CD Projekt is the publisher. Basically, they made games like The Witcher, Witcher 2, Witcher 3, and now they're making Cyberpunk, which is based off of a board game. And they had like this closed press only, no cameras, no audio, just eyes, like you can write stuff down, demo that they showed in E3. And this little channel, I wouldn't say they're actually little, they have like 80,000 subs, but they're like,
really
they decided to basically take audio. Now, there was nothing, they didn't sign an NDA according to them, but like it's kind of implied. And in the end, they ended up leaking the audio that they recorded, and it got taken down like immediately, but it's still out there. And they kind of tried to justify it by saying, we didn't sign an NDA, we didn't really agree to anything. But it was kind of like an unspoken thing where you weren't allowed to record. And then at Gamescom 2018, they kind of elaborated on that. We found out a bunch of new stuff about the game, like how it's playable from start to finish now, and a bunch of other stuff like that. But basically, it was another demo just like that. So, yeah, I think I'll just ask you guys, like, do you think it was right for them to do that? To leak the audio?
I'm not really certain. I don't really know. It's debatable.
I feel like that's such a gray area to talk about, because if they say they didn't sign an NDA and they really didn't sign an NDA, then they really have the right to do whatever they want with their audio, I guess.
Actually, that is one of the things. I think CD Projekt Red originally did take down their video where they did leak that audio, and then they withdrew their copyright strike or whatever.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't really know what to think about this. First of all, I'm not really invested into Cyberpunk, but if I hear the story like this, I mean, if they didn't sign anything, I mean, they can't really get in trouble because they aren't bound to anything. But like you say, it's an unspoken thing. I think that it's sort of right for them to do it. I say very carefully because, again, they didn't sign anything and they are there as journalists, and well, you have like press freedom, but it's all one big gray area. And I think it's okay. From my perspective, it's cool that they did it because I'm a consumer, and for example, if something like that would happen with Elder Scrolls 6, I would absolutely praise them for doing so. But
for YouTube videos, right?
Yeah. I mean, as the developer, I would really see like, well, I trusted that person not to do that because it was a closed door demo, and I mean, those things exist. And I don't know. I don't really know what to think about it. On one hand, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, they were in there invited as journalists. So, but on the other hand, secretly recording audio is also sort of against the law. I mean, recording it in secret. I mean, we have a lot of privacy laws here in Europe, and Gamescom is in Europe, so I don't really know what to think about it.
I'm actually gonna follow that up with a question. I don't think any of us are sure of how privacy laws work in Europe. Do you think you could elaborate a little bit on those?
Well, I'm not sure as well. Seriously, it's one big fuckery. No, but basically, we have a couple of the EU has a couple of general guidelines, as far as I know. Usually I'm pretty much into this if I prepared for it, but I didn't. We have a couple of guidelines for privacy, and I don't know exactly what they mean. And then every country has their own specifications on that. I mean, here in the Netherlands, we have pretty tight privacy rules because every time, for example, my mother runs the local tennis club, or at least she did last year. I don't know if she still does it. And there's been such an increase in privacy laws that you can't keep records of emails of your members anymore. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that, all for privacy. So you have those kind of things, and you also have the things like you can't post things without people's permission. That can be illegal, but I don't know how that's in Germany, and I don't know if that comes from the EU or if that's a Netherlands law. But I think it's pretty much illegal for them to secretly record the press conference. But then again, I'm no expert on law, and I don't want to say anything that's not right. So that's basically it. So if that's against the law, I'm against it. But if they can record it legally and they didn't sign anything, then yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much in favor of it.
Yeah, when it originally did happen, it was a closed door presentation, and they said, like, nobody signed NDAs, but the people there at the presentation did say, please do not record footage or video. But they never, the excuse was, well, their reason for uploading the audio was that they never actually said, don't upload audio and don't record audio. And the person who leaked the audio, who was there, he brought his laptop in with him, or he brought his phone in with him or something. And he said he was openly recording the audio. Like, anyone could have looked at a screen, anyone could have done anything like that. And nobody ever stopped him.
So what do you think, Biggie?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of in Imperial Knowledge Zork's side on this because I don't know too much about it. I knew about the leak initially, but I never did any follow-up information on it. Really, when Gamescom came out, actually my main focus was Dying Light 2 because that's my go-to right now. I'm waiting for that game so bad.
I want to play that game too.
I came so close to platinum trophying the first Dying Light. It was just like 3 multiplayer trophies I couldn't get because you had to play it with 3 other people. You had to play like 5 missions with the same 3 people. Get it, trying for it.
It's okay. None of us have friends in real life.
Yeah.
Game with my friend, actually. We got to the very end of the game, and then it turns out there's an Easter egg or something. I better not spoil it. It's actually kind of spoilers.
Cool has the least online subscribers, but he has the most real life subscribers of all of us.
I mean, what game came out? 2014 or 15? I think you'd be fine. Just warn it. Warn beforehand.
Okay, so Koo, you wanna hop into the next subject next topic?
Sure. Topic number 2: QuakeCon 2018. Doom Eternal, Fallout 76. Our opinions?
I fucking hate Fallout 76. It's absolutely terrible.
I was gonna say that as well.
No, okay.
Breathe in, breathe out. They're just Americans. Don't kill them. Don't kill them.
I actually have kind of mixed feelings about Fallout 76. The thing is, I'm excited because I want to experience the new lore that they've added, but I'm kind of upset that it's almost fully multiplayer.
It is fully multiplayer. Like, you can play offline, but you can't really ever play offline. It's like how Dark Souls 3 is.
You can.
Yeah, that's why I said almost fully.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty excited for, like you say, the lore, and I don't know. I don't really view this as a Fallout game. I more view it like a survival game because I'm gonna play it with some friends of mine who have already pre-ordered it. I haven't yet, but I mean, as a survival game and as a co-op game, I think it can be a pretty great experience. But on the other hand, as a Fallout game, if you're a real Fallout fan, like you liked Fallout 3, you liked Fallout New Vegas, you liked Fallout 4, I mean, you're not really gonna find in this game what you found in those. And I think that's what most people obsess. I mean, it's a good game, probably, but it's a bad Fallout game. And just like with what a lot of people say about Elder Scrolls Online, that they hate it, I mean, it's a really good MMORPG, but in my opinion, it's just not really what I seek in Elder Scrolls. And I think this is a bit the same with Fallout and Fallout fans.
That's kind of like one of the biggest issues I have. I think there's a few things that would work great in its favor, and it's just like a game. But labeling it a Fallout game, there's this huge disconnect between the rest of the games and then this one. Like for instance, in this one, you're able to nuke different settlements, right? Whereas in the other games, it's more or less stated that even after 200 years after the nuking, a lot of the places that were directly nuked are still damaged. But in this game, it goes away within a week. So there's like things like that are severe lore breaks for me that just kind of, I feel like they're just going to take me out of the game.
I'm willing to bet that one of the main explanations for why it's like so habitable there is that it's in West Virginia, which means West Virginia is not really the target of nukes. Like, they don't really have any main, big, huge places over there. So I think that's probably going to be one of the main explanations.
See, the thing is, Kuyo and I, we drove fairly close to West Virginia. Like,
Yeah, we breathe the same air as Todd Howard.
we did, and there was almost nothing there but woodland. So I definitely can see as to why.
No, but the thing is, historically, West Virginia is actually where a lot of military sites were, like nuclear testing sites. They had a bunch of launch pads there. They had a bunch of genetic experiments. They had things like aspects of MK Ultra. They had a bunch of stuff happening in West Virginia because it's so isolated that no one's gonna go into the forest and try and like look for military stuff.
I'm willing to go. Just somebody give me a tinfoil hat so they don't get into my brain, Muatra.
You stole my line. I'm suing you. Can we copy strike HB?
Yes.
Getting back on topic. When I first saw the game, I was really excited. I was like, whoa, this looks cool. This is a concept that we could really get behind. Like, I want to play Fallout, like an actual Bethesda game with people. I don't want to just be stuck, like, waiting for Skyrim together or something like that, and waiting for a Fallout multiplayer game that'll never come, like from Blackout Studio and their failed Fallout MMO. Basically, what I was thinking was that this was a completely new game. But then I saw it, and it looked like Fallout 4 with an EMB and some netcode. And I wasn't wrong, because that's what it was. They even explained how they made it. So, I forget the name of the studio, but they went under. They were bought by Bethesda. They went under after that. They were kind of shut down. But they made, like, they were involved in, I think, EverQuest, big MMOs from the past and stuff. And basically what happened was that they were told because sometime in the development of Fallout 4, Todd was like, hey, we really want to try the concept of multiplayer, but we're like right in the middle of development. We don't want to like branch off a single player game to a multiplayer game right in the middle. And so he got into contact with the studio head, and they became a support studio for Bethesda. Well, Bethesda Game Studio, support studio. And they ended up throwing netcode on, which it was like terrible. They had to like remove the atlas, which is what your characters got called, because the world renders around your character.
Oh yeah, that's very interesting. The company was called Battlecry, by the way.
Yeah. So they were like shut down. A bunch of stuff happened to them. But yeah, they had to throw netcode on the Fallout 4 and the creation engine. Sounds like a nightmare.
I mean, the people at Tamriel Online and Skyrim together, I don't know what it's called now, they've been trying it for multiple years, and it's just, not really working out all that well.
I mean, if we're going to say anything positive about this whole Fallout 76 thing, is they figured out how to put netcode on the creation engine.
Yeah, that is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think that it should have just been a tech demo, in my opinion, but...
I mean, I haven't seen too much from the game, and I'm actually pretty excited to play it with some friends of mine.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna play it. I just don't know if this is what I wanted. I wanted Starfield. I was hyped for Starfield. Like, I want Bethesda Game Studios to go in a new direction. I don't want them to just be Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Elder Scrolls. But they just went ahead and released 2 Fallout games in a row.
I think they are they got Battlecry Studios to help with Fallout 76, and they've had other branches helping with it too. Like they just opened another one in Texas, I think.
A part of me honestly feels like the whole Fallout 76 thing is more like, Kuya, you know how we do like random videos in between actual lore videos just to fill the time?
Yeah, no, exactly. It was an afterthought.
I feel like it's just an afterthought just to fill the space so people don't whine.
Yeah.
Because they did show the infamous demo for the Elder Scrolls 6 and the 5-second introduction thing to Starfield.
Yeah, I think they spent most of their time, like the main Bethesda Game Studios team that we know and love. I think they're probably not really all that involved with Fallout 76. I think that they've probably spent most of their time on Starfield.
You know what? I think the issue is with that though is that they should kind of adopt more of like a rock star personality where every 7 years your game is going to do fantastic no matter what you do. And I think coming out with a game so soon is going to kind of ruin that.
Yeah, you're right. I've noticed that like their production cycle, more or less, it's kind of been like, oh, from Morrowind to Oblivion, we had like 6 years, and now we're going to have 5 and then 4. So they're just cutting it down to put more stuff out. So maybe that's hurting them more than it's helping.
Well, I kind of disagree on that because I've watched a lot of documentaries on Bethesda Game Studios, and you really see how they started as a really small team on Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, and they increasingly became bigger. So if you have a bigger team, you can make your development cycle significantly smaller. And now they have several studios, so every studio is focusing on a little project. Like the one is focusing on Starfield, the other is Fallout 76 now. And I think that if you want to do the same amount of work on a game, like the same amount of detail attention, the same amount of amazing world, I mean, if you have more people, and you have more skilled people, and more dedicated people, then you can, of course, shorten the production cycle. I mean, if I have 1 million people working really well together on one game, I mean, you can technically have a game like Skyrim finished in a week. If you have 1 million people working like an oiled machine, I mean,
the issue with that, you get an oversaturation then. Like, because look at Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed came out with a game a year for like 6,
I was just about to say that. Like, Assassin's Creed is like a perfect example of it.
yeah.
And not only that, within the whole Bethesda universe itself, like there's a reason that a lot of people don't like playing Fallout 4. Because they have this brand new team working on it, there's not a consistency in the direction. So there's weird lore breaks where, there's jet and pre-war stuff, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from, where, they're able to do it because there's more people. But now because these old people are doing something completely different, there's going to be these inconsistencies in the actual game. And it's going to make it a little bit more... I don't know how a lot of people are, but some people like myself, and I know Kuya, we're like this, where we're really anal about the lore. So it messes with us when it's not consistent.
Well, I must say that Bethesda does show after some games that they've learned from mistakes. I mean, they've said, not always, but for example, if we see in Fallout 76, we had some, like you said, we had some complaints with Fallout 4 where people said, well, this is lore breaking, this is not good, this is not good. We know that at least Todd Howard really cares about that kind of feedback. So I really can't imagine them not doing a good job in that way on things like Elder Scrolls 6. I don't know how things are in Fallout 76. Yeah, of course, you have the gameplay things like that the nukes disappear, but that's just a gameplay mechanic, just like some things in Skyrim where you think that should be possible, like the levitation magic. I mean, it's illegal, but it's just removed for gameplay reasons.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess.
I mean, it's kind of fair, just like the nukes. I mean, you can't have a whole nuked map. That's
that's fair. That's fair, but I also think that kind of mechanic is a little silly because
it's just silly, and they don't just put it in for spectacle probably. But who cares?
Aside from Fallout 76, there was also the huge Doom Eternal thing that Kuyo made his video about. what would do you guys have any opinions on how you feel about that? I know there's a lot of people that have been saying, oh, it's Doom Eternal, it's garbage. And then there's like a lot of people that are really excited.
No, I think what you want to say is that, pardon my language, the SJWs, I know it's a trigger word, but the SJWs...
You've triggered me, I'm copy striking you.
Oh, come on, man, I was so close now. But basically, people who are offended by things like the line, quote, don't call them demons, call them mortally challenged. And what else? There's like a bunch of them. It's like how are you offended by stuff like that? Yeah, it's like it's supposed to be like a subtle play at that, but what's it gonna do to you? It's just words, and most importantly, it's from a video game that has extreme amounts of blood, gore, violence, and like explosions. Like, are you expecting a family-friendly experience?
Yeah, I don't know what those people are thinking, personally. But I don't know, I don't really like Doom, so I don't really have an opinion on it.
I've never played Doom, but I hear it's a really good game for what it does. Like, a first-person action shooter, for that, it's really good, but I think a lot of people get disappointed with what they want it to be, and that's not, like, they play it and that's not what it is.
Well, I played it for some time on... I borrowed the game on Switch from my friend because I wanted a shooter. And I don't know, I like the concept and I like the shooting parts, but it's just not a game for me. I mean, the entire story and just the walk from one room to another, fight demons in that room, then walk to another room, fight demons in that room. I mean, it's just not really my gameplay style. It's why I actually prefer Wolfenstein, which is in the same engine, but has like enemies everywhere instead of just room clear, room clear, room clear. But that's just my opinion.
Okay, so I think with that, we're just gonna gloss over the last point. I'll go over it briefly. It was the launch of the NVIDIA RTX series, which is basically the most rip-off thing ever. But it's interesting since basically they added these things called tensor cores, which are great for AI computing, as well as RTX cores, which do a bunch of ray tracing, which is just fancy lighting. But in general, I think it's just a gimmick. Maybe for now, at least, it's definitely the future of technology and gaming in general, especially in terms of lighting. But it's terribly overpriced, and honestly, it's not worth its price to performance. At least at this moment. Anyways, let's hop onto the lore, and I think I'll let Zork handle this one.
Well, now let's talk a little bit about the thing most people probably came here for, the lore of the Elder Scrolls series, because we're all lore YouTubers. And I want to start with a topic that was requested by users on Discord, and they asked for us to talk about that particular topic, the Falmer. In particularly, what made them so bloodthirsty as we see them in Skyrim, and something that I personally like to add to this little discussion, because it's particularly interesting to talk about it. Will it be possible for them to once again become like the Snow Elves of before, and actually lose their bloodlust and get some more culture in? So, as the beautiful host of this segment, I would like to pass the mic to Mr. Big E15.
I mean, honestly, the Falmer are truly fascinating, and I do think they eventually can come back to a primitive state at least, because we get a little bit of a taste of that in Skyrim. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was the guy from the... It's also possible there are other pockets outside of Skyrim. It's entirely possible, but overall, I think it is...
Snow Elves that survived.
Had to be outside of Skyrim as well, at least somewhat. I don't know if I have anything to continue on.
Okay, so I was gonna addendum to that. What Kuya was like, wait, there's snow elves in Skyrim, and how they did that. But basically, I don't know if you've played it fully, but yeah, there's Knight Paladin Gelbor and Archcurate Verther in Dawnguard, and basically they escaped the corruption of the Falmer by being in service to this big old guy named Oriel, and
this big old guy.
Oriel prevented them from having need for the Dwemer, and the Dwemer is what is commonly believed to be the true corruption, and the reason for their corruption, because the Falmer kind of fell into disparity, and they were force-fed these mushrooms, but from what Knight Paladin Gelbor tells us, the real reason they went into disparity, and this is what I think it is is a combination of both the mushrooms that made them go blind and deaf, and well, not deaf, but blind and disfigured them, but also in the fact that they had this hate in their hearts. And in the Elder Scrolls universe, if you believe something, you will become it. And I think that's what happened. They believed, like, it was a combination of all these things and kind of this sort of belief and this corruption, most likely by magic as well, by the Dwemer, which made them into a slave race. And that's, in my opinion, how they got corrupted.
I'm gonna piggyback a bit off of that, because we know that the Falmer they do a lot of blood sacrifices, and I think that when they were starting to go blind, what may have disfigured them may have been the blood sacrifices that may have led to it, because if they kept worshiping a god like Auriel, but they were doing these heinous acts, that might have displeased them, causing him to turn his back on them or something. Like, that's part of my headcanon, I guess. I don't know if that's verifiable or if that's written anywhere in lore, but it seems to make sense to me that...
I think that, like, the entire thing with the Falmer is actually really debatable, because as with a lot of things in the lore, the answer isn't really all that clear. Like, you can speculate about stuff and you can draw conclusions based on, like, actual information inside books and things that characters say and what you can find in the environment. But when it comes to the Falmer, we don't really know. Like, it could have been a lot of different things that caused them to become what they are. Not only the mushrooms, not only the hate, not only all that stuff, but things that we don't know about too.
Well, I personally always viewed it like they were enslaved with the mushrooms, and then they were turned blind. And that just, I don't know if that's, well, I think this is exactly what HB said earlier, or Kuyo. That, like, the hate they build up against the people that, the Dwemer that enslaved them, that's what ultimately, God damn it, that's what ultimately turned them into the hateful beings that they are right now. And that, like, the hate was just kind of integrated into their species. Like, somehow the hate of all those ancestors that came before, that were enslaved by the Dwemer, and that somehow manifested themselves in the entire species. I don't know exactly how that would work, but I mean, Galabor says that he hopes that they will one day become cultured again and will one day become peaceful again, follow the ways of Auriel, etc. But you don't really see them have any kind of remorse or have any kind of things that leads you to think, well, this is an entity and this is not some kind of monster. I don't know if that makes any sense, sorry.
There is actually one example that I can think of right off the top of my head of someone, like, changing, and that's actually Cicero. If you look inside of his journals inside the game, he had a contract, I think. I can't remember right.
It was for a jester that he had to follow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And after that happened, he slowly started to change. Maybe something similar happened to the Falmer.
I feel like that could happen, but we're not just talking about a singular person. We're talking about an entire race. So I guess it could happen because, like, this is the Elder Scrolls universe and magic exists, and believing in things makes them real in this world. But I guess it's just like the realism thing. It's kind of harder to believe that it could happen to an entire race.
Which brings me to a thing I want to talk about. How do you think they're going to get out of this? Like, what sort of thing would make them human, well, make them Mer again, instead of just these, like, mindless beasts that try and kill everything?
I think they might actually be capable of it right now, because if you look at, like, indigenous tribes and stuff in the real world, they are brutal and they're very skeptical of the outside world, but they can integrate. Like, if you have a feral dog, they can reintegrate into society again. You just have to retrain them. Maybe something like that. Maybe the Falmer are actually capable of reintegrating right now. It's just that they live underground and they're so used to the way that they lived that they're not used to anything else.
About what you just said, there's actually, in the game itself, there's actually evidence that they're coming further along, because if you look at the way that they're living now, the Falmer, they're not just like, well, they're not just these kind of like monstrous scabs just running around underground like the goblins are in Oblivion. They actually have like a societal thing. Like they're able to use magic. They have farming and whatnot. So I feel like what they're kind of coming back. They're starting to, because they're able to do these complex war tactics. They're able to farm, and they have a functioning society. It's just, to the rest of the Elder Scrolls universe, is just like a bunch of savages, I guess.
There is one book that I remember that says that they're starting to come up out of the ground and they're getting more adventurous and stuff. I think it was from a lighthouse, or there was a mystery about a murder there or something. I'm not sure.
North, I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't remember the lighthouse name, but it's like the Fallen break in and start like kidnap the daughters of the dude who lived there.
Yeah. I
slowly start to figure that out as the quest goes along.
Yes. Oh, goodness, this is gonna eat at my head because I know exactly what you guys are talking about.
Frostglow Lighthouse.
That's the one.
I just looked it up. Yes.
I mean, kind of being said though, early before, like with the aggression thing, I mean, it can be something genetic, because aggressiveness it can be a gene. Because I mean, look at dogs. Like when we had wolves, we genetically bred wolves to be passive because passiveness was a regressive trait.
Yeah, it's true.
We bred it into a dominant trait.
I mean, there's a video idea that all four of our channels could actually do, like the genetics of the Falmer. I do have a background in genetics and biology, so from what I know, there's what's called genetic markers that they're basically tags that can be coded for, more or less. So from what you're saying, there is a possibility that it could be a genetic marker that just gets passed on because it's more successful.
But you forget, genes don't exist in the Elder Scrolls.
That's true.
Boy, I did a complete video on genes, and genes are actually mentioned in the lore yet.
Is it genes, or is it more? The thing with the Elder Scrolls is it's weird because you can have a Khajiit and an orc have a viable offspring that looks
No. I actually did a video on genes in the Elder Scrolls universe, and I studied into this. This is a dangerous topic, Mr. Kuyo.
Lay down the lore.
The deal is that we actually know that genes exist. I had an entire conversation with Aramithius on this, and he actually told me that in the book House of Troubles, it actually tells that Molag Bal tried to meddle with the Dunmer gene pool. And the word gene pool, or the word genes at least, is explicitly used in that book. So it means that genes actually exist in the Elder Scrolls universe. And it actually, racial something, I don't know exactly what the book was, tells that Khajiit and orcs. I don't know if it was orcs, but at least Khajiit.
I know the book you can't
have offspring with the other races. That Mer and Man have a lower success rate than Man and Mer, but Khajiit and Man and Khajiit and Mer almost don't work. There have been some exceptions, but there's almost no viable chance of offspring in that.
And actually, I think that ties in really well to the next topic about the Thalmor and the moons, considering the Khajiit.
Did Ku just change the subject here?
I won't lie, that was a smooth transition.
Yeah, that was pretty smooth. I'd just like to add one last thing. I looked up House of Troubles. I looked up House of Troubles. It's written in the way that the 36 lessons are written. There is no explicit mentioning of genes, but I can see where you got it from. Because, this is like, it's like reading the 36 lessons. It's like, Sheogorath is the king of madness. He always tests the Dunmer and mental weakness. Like, it literally talks about like psychology, but by using Daedric princes. And like,
yeah, it's not really my cup of tea, but the specific word gene pool that was mentioned really let me some kind of gene. And when you take into account the fact that genes could exist in the Elder Scrolls universe, you could actually were led to some very interesting conclusions. And I don't know if you watched the video, but it was kind of inconclusive. And after the video, I got some more conclusions. And I'm kind of sorry that I made the video before I finished the research, but I was just really excited to do it. But yeah, it leads you to some interesting conclusions. For example, that somehow, if we compare it to real world terms, that somehow there's a big chance that your racial traits are actually defined by your mitochondrial DNA, which makes no sense at all, but it's the only DNA you always get from your mother. So
a note about that: mitochondrial DNA is not your DNA.
I know it's in your mitochondria. Let's not.
Yeah, let's not get into actual science right now.
I know that it's something different and that it doesn't cover anything in your body, but that it just is in our world, that it just governs your mitochondria and all their functions. But it's the only thing you get exclusively from your mother in terms of genes. So somehow, if we compare it to the real world, of course, because there could be another process and there might not be genes at all, and the word gene pool was just in there by accident, but somehow your race would then be defined by your mitochondria, and that's just completely insane. But it's the only real world comparison that we have to something that you only get from your mother in terms of genes.
One of the reasons I think it might be possible that Khajiit can't really breed with all of the other races is because their reproduction cycle is actually tied to the moons, and none of the other races' reproduction cycles are. So that might be one of the reasons.
Yeah, speaking of the moons.
Hey, I'm doing this. Back off.
Okay, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. I'm sorry.
No, you can. Really do.
By all means, go ahead.
Okay, speaking of the Khajiit and the moons, our second topic is actually about the Thalmor and the moons and the lore surrounding that. Considering there was this one event about 170 something years before Skyrim. There was an event called the Void Nights, and what happened was the moons, the two moons, Master and Secunda, they actually disappeared, and the people referred to that as the Void Nights, and it basically caused all of Khajiit society to go crazy, and nobody was knowing what was going on. Everyone was panicking, and then one day the moons came back, and the Thalmor took credit for it. So, what are our opinions on that?
It was all just one big eclipse. It just lasted 2 years.
End of story. Let's go to the next topic.
I personally think that the Void Nights it may have just been a localized event, because we don't really hear any other accounts from it aside from Khajiit accounts. So it may have been a localized event, like maybe a spell cast around the provinces where Khajiit are most likely to be. So maybe it was done as a way to force the Khajiit into the Thalmor's arsenal of, I want to say alliances, but it's not really alliances.
Yeah, well, it's really weird. I looked into it a while ago because I watched a video on it, and there's really not much on it. But what kept standing out is that, well, it was across all of Tamriel, because in the book that it just mentioned, it's actually mentioned that it is all across Tamriel. But the weird thing is that we have no idea what caused it, and we have no idea what brought it back. We know that the Thalmor claimed to have brought it back, but I personally doubt it. However, something that probably Kuyo and HB know better than me, I don't know exactly what was it, but one of the former Elder Scrolls writers on the old forums actually posted something about it being some sort of eugenics experiment on the Khajiit. But I don't know the specifics on that.
It was Michael Kirkbride.
Was it Michael Kirkbride?
I think it was Kirkbride.
I don't think it's Kirkbride, because I remember.
I don't speak his name. I don't know principle.
I don't know if it was Kirkbride, but I do remember seeing a post that was about it. And that's why I brought up
I just don't speak his name.
Well, I mean, that's why I brought up that may have been a localized event to bring the Khajiit into the fold. I don't know. I don't know if it was exactly a eugenics experiment or just some way to get their alliance, not to get them to just like trust the Thalmor indefinitely.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like
loyalty kind of thing.
I mean, the moons disappeared for 2 years. I feel like that if it was just a trick to bring the Khajiits to their alliance, to just force them into the alliance, that the Thalmor could have better done it openly. Like, look, we can take it away, now support us and bring it back. I think those 2 years actually tell us something, that something was going on, and whether there's something to do with it or not. I mean, it's not simply a trick if you do it for 2 years. It's a bit much.
I think it actually could have been an accident, and it was something that the Thalmor were trying out, maybe, and it went wrong. And then they finally fixed it, and they told everyone, hey, look everybody, look what we did.
Yeah, that's also one of the conclusions I came to, that might be a possibility, that they made them disappear, and then they just forgot to mention that when they brought them back. I mean, forgot to mention that on purpose, of course.
Yeah, so what I think happened was that, because I think, I'm probably wrong about this, or maybe just a little off, but in ESO Somerset, they do talk about like predicting future events, and I think the moons had something to do with it. And basically, Somerset and pretty much the Thalmor, which are just, the Thalmor aren't really they're the ruling body now, but they used to be just like the guard body of Somerset and the Queen. Basically, in Somerset, we find out about how the moons and everything is kind of correlated to the signs, and I don't know where I'm going with this, but I remember them saying something about it. Like, there was something specifically they mentioned about the moons disappearing, and it was kind of like prophesized. And maybe, I think, the Thalmor, or at least the Sapiarchs of the Somerset Isle, were trying to restore it. Or maybe they knew about it the entire time, and it just took them a really long time to find out about it.
No, yeah, basically, like, what if it was just like a whole thing where the Thalmor took away the moons, and then they're just like, well, shit, we don't know how to put the moons back. Well, this is a problem.
I think my biggest problem with the whole moon disappearing thing is that, in our world at least, the moon has a huge deal of effect on the tides, and I would think it would have something similar to do with the Elder Scrolls. So it's weird to me that in a lot of these cultures, like the Nords and the Bretons and the Redguards, they have predominantly sailor-like, water-marked cultures, but we don't hear any of them being affected. The only people that got affected were the Khajiit. So that's one thing I honestly find like a little weird about the whole situation.
Well, it's also possible they can control it, because there was, I want to say, it was with the Drenni when the Thalmor, maybe it was the Thalmor when they tried to attack.
Yes.
Yeah, the Drenni were able to control the waves, though. They were.
But once again, that's like just a short-term event. Like, but for 2 whole years, you can't really control the entire global sphere.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I think it implies something, because if you can make the moons disappear, which are the body of Lorcan, what does that mean about the power of the Thalmor?
Like, that's not confirmed. Like, it's claimed that they're his body, and that's actually something people don't often mention when they talk about the Void Knights. But yeah, those moons are claimed to be his body and his soul or something, and that could have, like, really a lot bigger repercussions. If Lorcan were to disappear from existence, that would mean a lot more than just the Void Knights.
Hey kids, do I smell foreshadowing?
And speaking of the sky and the moon, the next topic we have is about a thing that happened in ESO. Now, there is a little area in ESO, forgot the name exactly, but it's in the mountains. It's in the Yarrow Mountains. In the quest line, basically the serpent sign kind of becomes a physical entity and comes down to Nirn, or comes down to Tamriel, and it starts wreaking havoc. And a bunch of the other signs, like the constellations themselves, come down and try and stop it. Now, I don't remember exactly, because I did this during a guild raid, so I didn't get the whole story, but it seems to me that the constellations are more than just little holes in the sky, like made by the Magna Gay. In fact, I think that they might just be the Magna Gay themselves. So what do you guys think?
That is extremely interesting. I have no idea what actually happened in ESO, but that's really interesting if that's true.
Because how can the constellations have physical forms if they're just holes made in Aetherius by leaving spirits?
I mean, I didn't play it too much. Was it actually physical forms, or were they like...
Well, we saw like floating sort of, like, It was like ethereal, kind of, how we just saw them floating.
We do know that the Daedra and Aedra both can do that. So, I mean, it is possible that they could as well.
No, but are they even Magna Gay in the first place? Like, how can they be Magna Gay or any sort of spirit if the Magna Gay already left through the holes in Aetherius? And if it's a constellation coming down, then how could it be a singular spirit?
Because the stars are said to be holes into Aetherius, and because Aetherius is made out of pure magic, it is possible that the magic can leak out momentarily, taking the form of whatever constellation it's in. So I guess that is a possibility. I don't know how viable that is, but like I said, it is a possibility.
I'm always really careful when I talk about stuff like Aetherius and Oblivion and stuff, because a lot of the information that we have about those realms comes from really vague books and stuff that may or may not be true. Like, a lot of the books that give that information could be propaganda for people in the Elder Scrolls. So I like to take stuff like that with a grain of salt. But it is definitely possible that somehow, some way, the spirits that left Mundus during the creation event somehow went into Aetherius, and then maybe time paused, maybe their magic coalesced and they became the same spirit or something, and now they're worshipped by the people of Tamriel as that they then came down. But that's just complete speculation. Stuff like this is like really hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, okay, so any last thoughts on that?
Not really. I've never played ESO, so I probably have to play through that quest.
Yeah, ESO is like, it's a basket full of lore that you didn't want, but you also kind of want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all canon, too.
It's Fallout 76, basically. It's
yeah,
like
pretty
in
much.
between.
But the thing's, it's not canon because there is a multiverse now. So it is canon, but it's not canon.
Wait, what? A multiverse?
Yeah.
I don't, because it's technically canon, but also not canon because of the multiverse, I don't take any of it with any kind
so here, I want to explain it to Koo since he's kind of confused, and probably most of the audience. So basically in ESO Somerset, spoilers, but the quest for Somerset has you go and try and replace the crystal inside the crystal tower. Yes, it's not actually made of crystal anymore, at least. But basically you go and you try and replace that crystal. And the thing is about the tower itself, the tower is a representation of the constellation of the tower, which is the Tower of the Gods. And this physical tower is what holds up, it's like a pillar that holds up multiple different realities at once. And what we're told about it is that basically it exists in every single reality simultaneously. And
Does this have something to do with dragon breaks, since that causes multiple realities?
It might, because it's the pillar holding everything together. So for all we know, it could be that the pillar wanes every once in a while, or that perhaps the crystal gets weaker. But that's kind of, I don't want to get into that. But basically,
some out there stuff. Like, I have no idea what any of that kind of lore is.
Yeah, but basically in ESO, we physically go inside the tower, and as we're climbing up to the top of the tower to replace the crystal, we warp through so many different realities. Realities where people are alive, realities where people are dead, realities within other Daedric realms. And for all we know, the final realm we end up in may just be a completely different universe. Now, it may be dimensions or Oblivion realms, but it's very much hinted that it's a multiverse. That you're not jumping between dimensions or Daedric realms, but you're jumping between universes. And that's kind of a scary thought to me, because, like, does that just mean...
That opens up quite a lot of possibilities for lore in the Elder Scrolls.
I guess this might be a better topic for, like, the multiverse thing might be a better topic for next time in general, but that also does bring into question that what if the original reality you started out with in the world of the Elder Scrolls as it is, but then where you end up at the end of the game, at the end of the main quest, it's a totally different reality.
This is just a thought of mine, and I don't know if I'm right or not. But I have the feeling that these kind of things, with like the multiverse things, that these kind of things are made by Bethesda and then are way overthought by the community just to justify some lore-breaking things in ESO. That Bethesda just goes with it, with like this multiverse theory. I don't know. I'm not good enough at this part of the lore to actually make a strong statement on it, but I always have the feeling that with these kind of things, and also with other small things in the Elder Scrolls universe, that Bethesda intended them as something very small and just something they were like, ooh, that would look cool. Like, for example, the sky in Sovngarde or something. It's just a random thing that I threw in.
It's just a fancy-looking sky. It's not supposed to be like a representation of the orbit wheel or something.
Exactly like that. Or that this dimension hopping thing, that they were just like, ooh, that would be cool if we have them do that. Yeah. And that we just extrapolate that to, we're jumping dimensions and there are multiple universes. And that's something that sort of annoys me about the community, but at the same time, I like it about the community. That this is such a dedicated community that we do all this overthinking, but on the other hand, I'm like, stop overthinking things that I think personally are way simpler than we think it is. Because this whole multiverse theory just sounds to me like the people who play ESO justifying the fact that there are law-breaking things in ESO. I could be wrong, and I really don't want to offend things like that, because again, I overthink things too, and I mean, we all have theories and we can disagree on each other's theories. I mean, the multiverse theory is a very solid theory.
But speaking of multiverses, and speaking of fans getting ahead of Bethesda and canon, as you would call it, let's jump into the
canon. I don't care.
Let's just jump right into the next topic, which is Coda. And I just want to really, this is just for me to apologize for some of the mistakes I made. But I also kind of want to explain a little bit of Coda, because we were getting into Coda right there, because not everything we say is canon. Just as a heads up, we're making ruminations about things, and so I think that comes into Coda, where everything we just said was basically bits and pieces spliced out of Coda put into canon Elder Scrolls, and so that multiverse thing that was originally given in Coda, with the whole idea of Kalpic cycles and Shor, son of Shor, and Shor repeating multiple times and realizing that he exists side by side with himself, meaning that there must be multiple different parallel Shors trying to accomplish the same exact goal. But that's pretty confusing for anyone who doesn't really know Coda. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and I'd like to mention that I did make kind of a mistake on one of my videos about mixing up the names of Akulakon and Numidium. However, it appears that Akulakon and Numidium can kind of be interchanged given the context, because a lot of people tend to disagree on who is who. But yeah, so anyone have any thoughts about Coda, canonicity, etc.?
All that I know about Coda is that Michael Kirkbride wrote a lot of books, and he wrote them after he was no longer employed at Bethesda, so they're not canon. I know that a lot of people like to read them and theorize, well, what if they were canon? I don't really do that, because I primarily like to stick to the stuff that we know for absolute certain is canon. That's just me. But I do get annoyed when people try to claim that they are canon, and that's a problem that I've seen quite a bit. Have you guys ever noticed that?
Yup. And I think it's most obvious in the Shor being Lorcan theory. Now, people will say, yes, it's the most true thing, but let's be honest, we don't know that for sure.
Bethesda does need to use a lot of Coda to fill in gaps here and there, and they've actually come out and said, well, this stuff is kind of true because we don't have anything else to put in there. But my personal take on it is, anything that has already occurred, within the time span between the games, I don't take, all of it, as the truth, but it's more likely than some stuff that the community just speculates on. So if it's written in Coda, and it, for instance, if there's a gap between the second era and the third era, and there's something written in Coda, it's more likely to become true than just a fan theory. I'm sorry, that was a lot of rambling.
Yeah, so no, I think that's fine, but Biggie, what do you think about Coda?
I was about to say, I don't know too much about Coda in itself, so I don't know if my opinion would be too valid on the whole subject.
And speaking of Coda, hey, you guys want to go check out my video on it? I did a video on it. Did I mention that? If you guys want to get caught up on Coda, this is a blatant advertisement for myself, honestly. But
nice.
That nice. Plug being over, Biggie, you were about to say something.
Like I said, I just don't have too much of an opinion on it because I don't know too much about it. I'll actually watch your videos. How about that, Kuyo?
Oh, ooh, yeah, thanks.
I'll listen to that plug.
Yeah, okay, so I think that we've gotten these big topics out of the way. We can head right into the next section, which is whatever we want to talk about. I guess we'll just jump into Big E, since Zork wants to go last. So, Big E, whatever the hell you want to talk about, go with it.
The Assassin's Creed series. I'm buying Odyssey. I pre-ordered that shit.
Okay, why would you buy Odyssey, though? It looks like trash. I know the gameplay looks good, but it looks like trash. It's not Assassin's Creed. What happened to the lore? What happened to the animus?
I don't know. Why are you guys talking about Mario? I mean, I agree you should buy Mario Odyssey. I completely agree. It's a great game. You should definitely play it. But, I mean, Big E doesn't even own a Switch, so why even bother with Odyssey?
No, but I'm a huge...
What's this Assassin's Creed thing you're talking about?
I love history, and going and following the Peloponnesian War is really what I want to go and play with. I love the whole Greek and Spartan rivalry between that whole idea. So, I mean, I just want to know you guys' opinion on Assassin's Creed in general.
So here's what I think. So the games got repetitive after a while. They were pretty well based in history. Of course, they did take a lot of liberties with figures. They took a lot of liberties.
Damn right there.
Yeah, but it was kind of based in reality. Besides the fact that they have like an alien race that created humans and all that. But that's beyond the point. So I think that the gameplay and all the stuff looks really good with the game. And it looks nice, but my issue is... what happened to Desmond? What happened to his story? What happened to the future?
I don't give a shit. I hate Desmond. I really didn't care. Dude, I have a very unpopular opinion, maybe, but I didn't play 1, so I don't have an opinion on 1. 2 was awesome. Brotherhood was awesome. Revelations sucked. 3 was meh.
Revelations was amazing. It was the end of Ezio's story. It was the story we wanted, the gameplay we wanted, and the unnecessary thing about triple helixes we wanted.
I think that my biggest gripe with the way that the Assassin's Creed series has been going is I've played all the games up until Black Flag, and I really enjoyed Black Flag. I love what they were starting to go for. We're stepping out of Desmond's story. We're exploring the rest of his lineage. But then I feel like they just let that ball drop because in Black Flag, they straight up say, oh, all these new games are going to be based off of Desmond's lineage, just not from Desmond's point of view, right? So I feel like where they dropped the ball is after that, they're just going all over the place. And what was the game before Odyssey? The one that they released? Was it last year or the year before?
Origins.
Origins. And this is where I get the unpopular opinion. That's a very mediocre game. Not a great game, not a bad game. Very mediocre, very average.
You want to hear an opinion that's less popular than yours? Origins is an awful game.
What? No, that's I'm pretty sure that's normal. It's Assassin's Creed we're talking about. People will hate it.
I feel like the problem with Origins as a game is in the first 4 games, they straight up tell you how the Assassins organization started. It was started by Altair's master. It was literally stated in the first game that Altair's master and 8 others started the Hashasheon organization. But then in Origins, we're going back to ancient Egypt over a millennia well before we get to the Crusades.
I'd like to mention that they weren't actually called assassins. They're called Magi, just to note.
Okay, but it's the same kind of weaponry and whatnot. Yeah, I get it. They're the Magi, but the Magi were religious zealots of Egypt. They weren't assassins.
The only Assassin's Creed games that I played were the first one and the second one, and a little bit of the third one.
Rogue you can completely skip.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, skip Rogue. Rogue is bad.
Is that the third one?
I think it's like the 6th or 7th.
No,
it's
a spin-off, I think. Rogue was, yeah.
Like, I honestly don't have a problem with them, like, expanding the universe, expanding the Assassin's Creed storyline. It's just, when there's some things that are already stated in their game's lore, when they break it, it just makes me angry.
I definitely feel that. A Syndicate was, like, the last of that big series that I ran out of steam playing it. And I only played it because it was free last year, for gold on Xbox.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of skip mine because I want to rethink that. We'll come back to it. So, Koo, we're going to go to yours.
My topic is about old games that we've played. Now, when I was really little, I used to play a game called Black and White, and there were 2 games in that series, Black and White 1 and Black and White 2. Essentially, they were these god games. A god game is a game where you basically it's kind of like an RTS, but you have people, well, more often than not, and you can control various factors such as the environment. You can build houses for them, but it's not a traditional RTS. And those were games that I grew up on, and I feel a lot of nostalgia for them. The thing is, today, you never hear people talking about those games, and it's really sad to me because I really wish that they would make a sequel for those. Unfortunately, the company that published them was EA, and today a lot of games by EA. yeah, we all know that story. I don't need to get into that. But
Hey kids, you can't spell steel without EA.
they basically killed off the Black and White franchise, and that's really something that makes me really sad.
Cast
What
it
games
itself.
that you guys have played?
You want to go first, HB?
No, you can go.
Okay, so the first video game I ever played in my life was, I believe, GTA San Andreas. And I didn't really play it much as I took it from my cousin's hands, and they tried to let me jiggle around the little sticks on the controller. That was my first experience with video.
Joysticks?
Yeah, the joysticks. I literally have a controller in front of me. But yeah, so that was my first experience with games. The first actual video game, object that I ever got was a Nintendo DS. And the first game was, I think... No, it wasn't the DS. We had something before that. It was the Nintendo Game Boy Color. Yeah, and it was Pokemon Silver on it. Now,
Gold.
No, silver was before gold. Remember the silver thing? Yeah, the silver thing kind of dried out. But yeah, the internal battery on silver was dead. So we didn't really play much of that. And the thing is, me and my brother, we being like little kids, you're going to end up sharing all the things because your parents don't really understand how video game consoles work until you get older. But we basically just shared that handheld. And then eventually we got Pokemon Gold Edition on the Game Boy Color, and we played that a lot. And then eventually, the first fully fledged video game that we ever got was Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. We had both versions, but we ended up selling, returning Diamond, and we kept Pearl. Yeah, and pretty much we ended up growing up on Pokemon stuff, mainly.
Hold up, before we go any further, favorite Pokemon, everyone go. Mine's a tie between Charmander and Lucario. Fight me.
I would say Infernape versus Lucario. I think that's a tie for me.
Cyndaquil, come on, guys.
Cyndaquil gets my love too.
Guess what?
I think Dragonair versus what's the
Dragonair? Come on, man.
Dragonair versus Farfetch.
Farfetch and Dragonair. What a choice.
What a matchup.
Dude, I defeated my friends Dialga with my fucking Farfetch. Shut up.
Okay, so what about you, Koo? Yeah, it seemed as though you were a big proprietor of Pokemon.
I've never played a Pokemon game in my entire life, and I have no idea what it's about.
So basically, you catch these organisms against their will, and you trap them in these balls. And they're like these,
I knew that.
and you force them to fight against each other. Okay, but basically it's an RPG. It's not really. It's
Kuyo. What you're talking about is the Pokemon Black and Blue version by PETA. The actual Pokemon games. You're capturing these mythical kaiju monster things, and then you're basically kind of training them. And training them by battling with them and spending time with them helps them grow and evolve and turn into.
It's like an evolution of the turn-based RPG.
I don't remember who brought it up, but Pokemon Silver, fuck that Miltank, dude. Fuck that Miltank.
Oh my god, that thing was the worst thing on this. Whitney's Miltank gave me cancer growing up.
Fuck that Miltank.
The best part was that feeling you'd get when you'd come across one of the three dogs. And you were so close to catching it every time.
And then it run away.
No, remember, I caught Raikou, and it was the best feeling I ever had.
Raikou and Suicune were really easy to catch, but then when you got to Entei, anytime its health dropped below, I think it was 20%, it would run away.
So I think I want to get back on track with this, but yeah, so basically we ended up growing up on Pokemon, and then I think for me, I was in 6th grade? Yeah. Because that was 2011. Yeah, so 2011, I think I was in 6th grade. And this game, I saw this commercial with this furry cat guy running on TV. And I was like, yo, what the hell is this? Is this some weird game that adults play? And then this kid in my class, he came in with a laptop, like the most janky looking laptop you could ever imagine. He was playing Skyrim on the bus. And I was like, hey.
What?
Yeah, he was like playing Skyrim on a laptop on a bus, and it wasn't even like a.
That guy was years ahead of the Switch.
It was like I don't even know how his laptop ran it because it looked like the most jank thing I've ever seen, and I was like, this is the coolest game I've ever seen in my life. You can play any character you want. What? And yeah, that's how I got into Elder Scrolls. It was Skyrim. I started off as a Skyrim baby, and I regressed. I played Oblivion after that, and then I went to Morrowind. But yeah.
Same way.
I think
I
some
was
of
definitely
my,
the same way.
I was kind of like that, except I had actually borrowed my best friend's copy of Oblivion, and it played like about 10 hours in that. I had no idea what I was doing, and I died a trillion times. So
Once gets
I
killed
was
by-
basically a
Gets killed by
Skyrim
Stever.
baby. But no, this is Oblivion days. We had potato faces and giant rats.
I remember them all too well. I grew up playing Oblivion also, and I can't really remember too much of it because it wasn't my game, and I didn't play it on. I didn't have a computer at the time.
I know, right? Like everyone just borrowed games back then.
Yeah,
how
you're a
it
kid.
was.
What else can you do? You're just a little kid. What can you do? You know. So yeah, I grew up playing Oblivion too. I haven't played it ever since then. Don't judge me. And I don't even own it right now. But I still make lore videos, obviously, even though I don't own it. I really want to get it though, so I could start making videos about the stuff that's in it.
I mean, say what you will about Oblivion, it is a really good game, in my
Aged
opinion.
very well. It aged very well.
It aged beautifully. 10 out of 10.
I think Morrowind aged better than it. Morrowind aged miles better than Oblivion did, in my opinion.
I'm ashamed to say that both Morrowind and Oblivion I've played way less than they deserve. Finished both, but since then I haven't really done much.
I mean, it's okay. I haven't finished Morrowind, so.
You haven't?
I've never
No, I
played
haven't.
Morrowind.
Don't get me wrong. The game is fun. It's just it takes too long, in my opinion.
Well, it's got an MMO hook where you don't feel invested in the game until you've actually put shit tons of time into it. Like in my opinion, like I only got invested in Morrowind when I spent 3 hours looking for some mushrooms, and that killed me. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this game is worth my time.
Because of the fact that you put so much time into it, you basically say to yourself, "Well, there's no going back now."
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know if that's a good appeal for a game, but if it works, it works. You know, it
Yeah.
just works.
Okay, so I think that's me and HB out of the way. What about you, Biggie? What are the games you grew up on?
My mom buying me Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and she's just like, "You can play this shit, but you don't repeat anything." So that was one of them. The Destroy All Humans 2 was one of them.
I remember that game.
I mean,
wasn't-
I
actually
count Biggie. I would count you like really lucky. The first quote unquote violent game I owned was Dishonored.
But it wasn't until 2012 I actually got an Xbox, and I got Skyrim for free. It came with the Xbox 360, and I actually, believe it or not, this is actually kind of funny. I hated Skyrim the first time I played it, and I couldn't stand it. And then I went back to it.
Can we copy strike Biggie 15?
Yes, please.
I went back to it. I was like 3 months later. I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot again. I went back to it, and I was hooked. And now I have like probably close to over 1,000 hours in Skyrim.
I've heard that of a lot of people actually who say that they've tried Skyrim or they tried Oblivion or something and they didn't like it at first, but eventually they come back to it and they play it again and they absolutely love it.
It's because you start having dreams about the game at night, and you're like, damn, I wish I could climb that mountain over there.
Maybe it's because you
I
just
fucking
yourself.
I walked in,
or maybe
I
it's
out of the
because-
mountain, and I walked up and found a cabin, and there was an orc mercenary like, hey, bitch, I'm gonna kick your ass. And I'm like, what the fuck? like, this is stupid.
Speaking of hours in Skyrim, what's the most amount of hours you guys have on PC? I just want to know for.
Well, let's just check my Steam.
Well, I first had cracked Skyrim, which had 300 hours. Then I had legit Skyrim, which had 1,000 hours to 900 hours, and I don't exactly know how much it stands. And now I have Skyrim Special Edition close to 500.
I don't know how many hours. I think I played it on my friend's computer, but I think I estimate that overall, including Special Edition, all of the time I've ever played of that game probably adds up to about 2,000 hours.
Yeah, no, all my time was spent on the Xbox 360 where I originally got it. And oh my god.
If
You know, someone deleted our character, I'm gonna make...
accident.
You deleted a character who's level 81.
It was an accident.
Dude, that's where I left off. My character was level 81 where I left off.
The thing is, though, like, if you ask a lot of the people who are watching, a lot of them probably grew up playing Skyrim.
Yeah, that is true. Well, it came out a long time ago, so technically we all grew up playing it.
And that's really odd to think, like, hey, let's go play Skyrim. You know, the game we played when we were kids.
No, I didn't even think... I don't feel like Skyrim is that old of a game, though.
I know. It doesn't feel like it, but technically it
Definitely
is.
not.
It aged a lot better than Oblivion, in my opinion.
It's really one of the games that is just... I don't know, it seems like a timeless game. Like, you can play it now and it still feels sort of new. And certainly with the Special Edition, it still feels sort of modern.
Definitely.
The only thing
I think the biggest grace for that game, and for a lot of Bethesda games, is mods. Because you can take something like Oblivion, and the way that I modded my Oblivion, it looks... I wouldn't say it looks like a brand new game, but it looks like something that may have come out in 2012.
Yeah, you can really mod it just like almost the way you want it.
My Skyrim is very modded. Like, I spent a very long time perfecting my Skyrim.
Because mods are now on consoles. Even that, like, that's just one step further to keep that game going, even in console spans now. So it's not just PC that people are going to play Skyrim on.
Like a year ago, I played Skyrim, and I just was like, well, let's fuck it. I'll install as much I install as much mods as I want, and I just see where I end up. And I ended up being a farmer. I actually had a hoe, and when I hit the ground with it, you got a mold where you could actually plant something, and after 10 days, it grew into a crop. And then I walked to Rorikstead and actually sold it, and that was my life for like a week.
Wow, you were playing Farmville. You're lying. That was totally Farmville.
Okay, so speaking of which, Zork, how did you grow up playing games? What were your favorite games when you grew up?
Well, I remember that the first actual games that I had were on my Game Boy Color when I got a Game Boy Color from my parents, and I actually got Pokemon Silver with it. And I lost that cartridge, and I bought a new cartridge recently for memory's sake, and I can't find it right now, unfortunately. But when I put it in, it was like Pokemon Vietnamese Silver, because the text was like all corrupted, and I really can't play it right now on my Game Boy Color, and I absolutely hate that, because I wanted to play on vacation. I really wanted, but I really couldn't. So I played Pokemon Yellow instead, because I got that after Silver. And I actually played that on the original cartridge from when I was a kid, but then with changed batteries in the cartridge. It's that's basically Pokemon Silver, and Tetris on the Game Boy is basically what I grew up with. And then after a while, I eventually got a system for the TV. I believe it was GameCube, or it was even the Wii. I mean, it took a long time before I actually got something for on the TV. I believe I got the Wii first. I don't know. But I got the Wii, and then I got Zelda Twilight Princess, which is really the first like violent game that I ever played. And after that, I got just Pikmin and Mario and that kind of games. I really grew up like a Nintendo faggot.
Oh no, dude! My first console was the N64. Like, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Banjo Kazooie. Those were my games.
N64? But you're not even that old. That's like
that was my first console, man.
That's like let me think. When did the N64 come out? Like 2000.
Well, while I had a Game Boy, a friend of mine who lives across the street, who I still talk with a lot, he had an N64. I also kind of grew up playing Pokemon Stadium and the original Smash Brothers.
That too.
But I mean, it's my first actual console that I had myself was the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, the N64 came out in 1996.
It's an old piece
my
of
mom
shit.
bought me one when I was like
2 years
It's-
old.
and No, I got one. I was like probably like 5 or 6, but like
I mean, it's a game console is a game console. Let's be honest. Like
Mommy, why is the fat
It's by far my
fighting with the
growing
fat?
up.
yeah, okay. So are we all good for this topic?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I've been out here for a while.
It was a nice trip down memory lane.
I think we should we should start wrapping
Nice
this
time
up.
editing this.
Yeah, we should start wrapping this up. We're getting close though. So I think we're gonna have to skip over my topic again.
And probably also over my topic.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a synopsis. I already did a synopsis on mine. What did you want to talk about, Sork?
Well, I wanted to talk about the little defense of the Nintendo Switch and like the current place in the market that it has, and the potential future for the system. But
Yeah, because I heard that the stock was kind of dropping.
yeah, the Nintendo stock was kind of dropping, but it rose again, sort of. Because it's a really confusing situation they're in right now. Because on one hand, you would think, hey, your E3 thing was kind of disappointing, because they didn't talk at all about the Pokemon that's coming up. They almost didn't show anything about the new Mario Party that's coming up. They didn't show anything of Metroid Prime 4 and what was the other game they announced earlier? I really don't remember. And they also didn't talk about the new Fire Emblem, etc. They just showed Smash, and just the fact that they didn't show any of that.
But everybody's here.
Everybody's here.
Except for the character we want.
Waluigi.
The thing is, you know, the funny thing is, as you mentioned, it's wild that Nintendo, like, everyone brags about, like, oh, Sony or Microsoft, they have all these exclusives, whatever. But like, Nintendo is the one that really has the exclusives to ride off of. Like,
yeah, well, they certainly, the Wii U completely lived off exclusives, and that's actually one of my major points for the future, because a lot of people are saying, well, they have sort of third-party support-ish now, but I see that not ending in the future. But every like 2D platformer in the future will probably also come on the Switch, because right now they have sold 20 million units in under a year almost. Now it's a little over a year, and they are projected with the strong holiday period with Mario Party, with Pokemon, and with Smash Brothers. They are projected to sell 34 million units by the start of the next financial year, so by March next year, which make them a real competitor. And actually, they are projected to, by the end of the life cycle of the Switch, to actually have surpassed the Xbox One in sales. So they are a major player in the market, but they're playing it really smart, because they have all their exclusives, which makes that even if third-party games can't run on the Switch still has a life, because everybody has an Xbox, a PlayStation, or a PC, but still, you want a Switch for the exclusives, like a little side console you can take on the road, you can take whatever. I mean, it's not for everyone. I mean, I'm a lot in transit, so it's ideal for me. I mean, I can play Skyrim on the road, I can play Wolfenstein on the road, but I mean, it's a major player in the market, and certainly all PS3 and Xbox 360 golden games, as I always call them, like things like Tomb Raider that might get ported because there were rumors, but also Diablo 3, Dark Souls, Saints Row is actually coming now.
which one?
Those kind of games could still get ported and could do really well for people that want to play them on the go. But like the main selling point for the Switch as a second console, because they're not marketing it at all as a first console, because they know that Microsoft and Sony have that in their pockets. But as a second console, they actually make a real contender in the market, because right now they have games like Rocket League, even Fortnite.
Fortnite is terrible.
Yeah, but I mean,
can't you play Fortnite on a potato now or something?
Yeah, you can. I can play it on my phone, and my phone is a potato. But I mean, it really makes that combination with popular indie games that actually a lot of people play, in combination with, well, old games on the third-party front, and limited new third parties like the Starlink Battle for Atlas, but also the Dark Souls remaster, and all those things that can actually handle on the Switch. Like also Elder Scrolls Blades is also coming, Elder Scrolls Legends, but things like Valiant Hearts are also coming, and even Firewatch is coming, the popular indie game. With those kind of things to keep it going on a third-party front, and probably less and less third-party intensive games with more and more things like the 2D platformers and those kind of things, because people see that there's a market for those kind of games on the Switch. I mean, Battlefield, of course, would do well, but it just can't run on the thing. I mean, it's a tablet. That really makes it... A lot of people say, well, the Switch will be dead because when the PS5 and the Xbox Infinity or something launches, there won't be any third-party games. But that doesn't really matter anymore because they're a second console. People buy them for the Nintendo games and have to have limited third-party games that they can actually take on the road. It would be amazing if you could play all those other games on the road, but for the time being, they've really created a market with projected 34 million units, and that's actually a contender in the market. So that's in short what I wanted to say. I had all sort of things prepared, but it's not important.
Okay, so let's move on. I'll pass it to HB. The last bit.
The last bit I wanted to bring up is I got a couple of questions from the community, and I'm just going to throw them out to you guys. Let's answer them as fast and as quick as we can. Question number 1. What do you think the elves feel about the Thalmor?
Besides the High Elves?
Well, including the High Elves, just like elves in general. What do you think they feel about the Thalmor?
Well, High Elves, I think, would probably see them as like something to strive towards. Dunmer probably hate them. Pretty much every elf race probably dislikes them, because they changed so greatly from how they behaved in past ages. They became much more imperialistic.
In the High Elf spectrum, I would even say probably 1 in 4 High Elves despise the Thalmor.
Actually, there's this guy called Runil on my video about the Great War and the White Coat King Horde. I found this man in Falkreath. His name is Runil. He used to be a general for the Thalmor, but he regrets it now, and he still has nightmares about those days back when he used to command the armies.
Oh yes, the priest of Arcay in Falkreath, right?
Yeah, he's a high elf.
All right. Second question: who is the tallest of the Jarls? I'm gonna answer this really quickly. It's Balgriff because he's ballin'.
Yeah, I would have to say Balgriff too.
Well, clearly you guys. Now, clearly you guys don't understand. It's Ulfric Stormcloak. Don't you understand? He has to be big in every way. Otherwise, why would he start a war? Right?
Dick.
Okay, so it looks like that's Jarl Balgriff. That's uncontested.
Guys, actually, I think we're going about this wrong. The tallest of the Jarls has to be, without a doubt, Igmund the Younger. Like, think about it.
Really?
No.
A little old lady, in my opinion.
Oh man.
Next question. Who, in your opinion, is the sexiest NPC in Oblivion?
Ooh.
The adoring fan, obviously.
Sheogorath, 100%.
No. I would have to say Joffrey. No, not Joffrey. Sean Bean. I mean Martin Septim. Damn, is his he's the only good-looking NPC of all of Oblivion.
I think Sheogorath had a really good face.
I'm gonna have to go with like a split of either Sheogorath or Martin Septim, because I'm not gay, but
man, the beaver can take me out all night long. I have a girlfriend, but I'll let the beaver do anything to me.
I'm fairly sure my girlfriend wouldn't mind. I'm sure she'll be fine with it.
Yeah. Okay. So next question.
Wilder Queen's quest status in the fourth era.
Yes, the
Did
fourth
it change
area.
to a Wilder King. Yes, the fourth area of Nern. In the fourth era, would it change to the Wilder King again?
So I think this needs a little bit of background. How many of you know about the Wilder Queen and the Wilder King?
I do not at all.
Biggie?
Nothing about it. I'm assuming it's Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, so HB?
I know about as much as the rest of the guys here.
Yeah, okay, so basically in Valenwood, there's 2 kings. There's the king of the civilized world, which agreed to the Green Pact that communicates with the humans, And then that king has another king that he communicates with. Or a queen, depending on who it is. It can switch either way. Like, there could be 2 queens, 2 kings, a queen, whatever. But basically, this king is called the Wilder King. And he communicates with Ifre directly. And he is extremely powerful. He can literally, like, bend trees and make things grow in front of him in, like, split seconds. We see a lot of his power in Greenshade, in ESO, the region. And basically in Greenshade, we go on a mission to basically replace the old Wilder King because he's dying. And you replace him with this girl who was born with these powers to control the earth and the land. But the thing is, she's a high elf, and it doesn't really matter what the race is, but basically she had all these powers, and she was going to be used by her country to, like, as an advantage in war. But you basically aid in her becoming what is the Wilder Queen. And the thing is that when you become the Wilder Queen, you forget who you used to be. You just become the embodiment of Ifre and the woods and the wilds themselves. But yeah, that's basically what happened. And this person's asking, did they ever become a Wilder King again? Well, I honestly have no idea. We haven't actually been updated on that. And I haven't really done anything about this. I mean, if someone wants to do a quick Google search here, probably look at it.
I don't know that much, but I do have something to say about it. It really does matter if the Wilder King or the Wilder Queen is immortal or if they're sexless. Because if they're sexless and immortal...
No, they have a sex and they're not immortal. The thing is that the spirit is immortal. The husk that it chooses is not.
Well, yeah, and in that case, then, if the husk is what's being called the Wilder King or Wilder Queen, then if that husk dies and... because she is a mortal husk and she's a high elf, then it's more than likely that by the 4th era that there's another Wilder King.
But the thing is, she's a high elf. For a high elf, 1,000 years is like 50 years.
I mean, that's fair, but that's also not really corroborated in the lore.
But it is, though. In ESO, you know what it takes to go from an apprentice to being a fully fledged employee at her zoo? 10 years. And that's considered just becoming a full-time employee.
Queen Ren is a baby.
Exactly. So like thousands of years are nothing. So if we just take it by like age alone, I would probably say maybe it's still the Wilder Queen. But just speaking in terms of how much strife there's been, how much like terrible things have happened, there's probably a Wilder King or a Wilder something at this point. But I don't think there's any actual information about it. If there is, we didn't actually look it up. This is just off the top of my head. Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
All right, so last question. Who is Dringoth? What are his kind? Little bit of background. What about a little bit a little bit about this is Dringoth is this skeleton thing that you find in ESO. And he has what he calls, I think it's brothers that are other skulls around, and they're giant skulls, but they're also like, his skull looks like a human skull, but the others kind of look like different animals.
Wait, actually, I'd like to know something.
Wasn't he like a spirit that just lived inside the skeleton of a boss man?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we find his, I think it's his skull.
We find his actual skull, and it's okay. So basically, where we find him is a place called the Boneyard. I think I forget the exact name, but it's in Greenshade, which is in Valenwood, and it's this massive tree which they planted in, which his brothers and sisters, who are all way smaller than him, planted inside of his head because he was so massive that when he walked, well, no, it wasn't his brothers and sisters. I don't think so. But basically, he was a giant. Dringoth was a massive giant. I don't know what he was, which is kind of what... I actually put this question here because I want to...
Giants from Skyrim.
Oh, even bigger. Like, literally, this... Like, you know those world trees in ESO? Here, let me see if I can find a picture.
I think I know what you're talking about. They're really huge trees.
Yep. The thing is, though, like, I did a little bit of research beforehand about this, and everything that I could find on Dringoth says it's most likely that he's an Elnafay.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing. I was looking up him.
But the thing is, like, why would the Elnafay be so massive in size? So why would one in particular be so damn massive that the Bosmer would plant a seed inside of his head to kill him?
Well, I think the thing with the Elnafay being massive is, weren't they supposed to be gods at one point?
Well, they're ancient spirits. Yeah, they
Faded
I
descendants of the Aedra
Yeah,
who
so
walked Tamriel.
if that's the case, then if over time they became more and more likely to be mortal, then it's very likely that they may have actually started off massive as well. Because remember the avatar? I don't know if you guys remember from Oblivion. There's a scene where the avatar of Akatosh appears, and he is massive.
But he's a god. How can you kill a god?
But the thing is, the thing is, with these ancient spirits, if we're going off what the High Elves believe, they believe at one point they were gods. So if these ancient spirits were gods, I think it's fair to say that it's likely for them to be massive.
It was Dringoth as big as the what's his name? The god that invaded Tamriel.
Moag, not Moag, but Murun's Dagon.
Yeah, was he as big as?
Way bigger. Way bigger. Like,
I don't know then. That doesn't really make much sense.
it took a world tree in his skull to kill him. And the thing is that his family, what they say is that his family themselves, their skulls are like the size of dragon skulls. And speaking of which, they look like dragon skulls. Like the model from ESO for dragon skulls looks almost identical to their skulls. Which has me kind of confused because our if he is a Magna Gay or an Elnofe or whatever it is, does that mean they look like dragons? Because Dringoth himself, his skull was a giant dragon, but it's told to us that, well, we aren't actually described anything, but it's assumed that he looked like a human when he walked, but he has a dragon skull.
Well, it could be possible because they were all followers of Akatosh. That's perhaps the.
But the Elnofe weren't, though, because the Elnofe were just wandering spirits that were remnants of the Aedra.
Well, there's two sects of Elnofe, though. There's the wandering Elnofe, and then there's the old Elnofe. I don't exactly remember what Dringoth was, but if he's wandering, then he could look like anything.
The thing is that
if he's old, if he's one of the old Elnofe, he's a follower of Akatosh.
In his backstory, his family kind of describes how it was them and him, and all that Dringoth ever wanted to do was to walk once again freely within the plains of Aetherius. And that kind of brings up a point where, does that mean he was a wandering Elnofe? Because he wandered on Tamriel. He didn't, because it's specifically mentioned that he destroyed all of Tamriel. He carved the landscapes. And he finally took a little nap in Valenwood one night, and the Bosmer put a seed in his head. And with that, not only was his family trapped there permanently, because they couldn't escape the plane of Mundus, because I'm assuming that Dringoth was kind of like a planeswalker. He could travel multiple planes at a time, which is what they kind of alluded to when they said that, because they were trapped there permanently. Their bones were also buried alongside his. I don't know how they were killed. They might have just been trapped and ended up dying normally. But yeah, it doesn't make sense. Why would they look like dragons? In fact, not all of them look like dragons. Some of them look like saber-teethed cat. And some of them, yeah, same thing, but they look like wolves, different animals, but they're all like massive. But they're not nearly as big as Dringoth. So I still don't know what the hell he is. Because like even on the UESP site, it says like he's alluded to being an Elnofe. But are we sure about that?
I don't nearly know enough about it to make an informed opinion, but the way you're describing it makes me feel like he's some sort of... Yeah, that's probably the definition of Elnofe, but then again, I don't have enough knowledge on it. But it feels like he's some kind of remnant of creation, as if he's some sort of god forgotten and who just was left behind and, as you said, kept walking and carved in Tamriel or something. And then his story happened with planting the seed, etc. But to me, it feels like he's some sort of leftover of creation.
That's kind of what I'm thinking of.
If that makes any sense. But then again, I don't have enough knowledge on it.
Yeah, I know. There isn't even that much in ESO. Like, I've asked everywhere, and there's been no concrete evidence on it.
I'm thinking it's more likely that he's actually one of the Atada, that he got trapped here, and instead of, like, dying, he just kind of kept walking around, like you said, and he never really died until he was eventually killed by planting that seed.
Is that possible?
If they're strong enough, he could have been really strong. He could have been kind of like the Aedra, and he just kept his power.
The thing is that he was expressed as being a gentle giant. Like, he had enough power to change the world, but all he wanted to do was run free.
Yeah, maybe that's... Well, there you go. Maybe that's the reason that he's actually here. Like, maybe that's his story right there.
That makes me kind of reminding of Daedric Princes, like how chaos is in Maroon's and Dagon's nature, wandering is in his nature. Maybe, I don't know. Then again, I don't know enough about it, but that's the impression I'm getting.
Because you brought up Daedric Princes, that kind of gave me a bit of an idea. Especially Maroon's Dagon. It was either him or Molag Bal, one of the two, that were made on Nirn. They're not like native to whatever. So it could be possible that Dringoth could be a Daedric prince that was just born on Nirn, and that might be his actual story.
Yeah, but for something like that, we hear... Well, then again, it's logical. We don't hear much about him. But, I mean, for something like that, and like something like I said that he, and also Koo said that he might be one of the Adana, he's just not mentioned enough. As if he's not mentioned very much in the lore, only in that particular quest, I believe.
Yep, I think that's like the only time I've ever heard of him.
Yeah, and that makes me think, if there's lore behind him, we will either... Maybe it's like an Easter egg that we will get in later games or later DLCs, where we will get what his species was, or if he even was a species, or if he was a Daedric prince, or if he was a god, or if he was an Elder Fae. But I'm getting the feeling that if he is like an Adana or a Daedric prince, that there have to be some sort of legends in mythology about him, like that there was one that was left over from creation, or was one that was just like Maroon's Dagon, born on Nirn or anything.
I think the biggest problem with the whole thing is he's a one-time appearing character in ESO. And because ESO takes place a long time beforehand, you would expect there to be lore in other games, but because it's the newest game, it's like a monkey wrench.
Yeah, they just kind of stuck it in there.
Yeah.
Well,
we gotta hope to find out about later. Maybe Elder Scrolls 6 in 65 years when I have, diseases and dying.
Looks like we've been at this for about 2.5. Okay, actually, let's make that a couple billion hours. But really, we've been at this for like 2.5 hours about. And I think I'm going to cut off the recording. But before we go, Koo, would you like to plug anything?
My channel. My channel is called Koocai, and it's on YouTube. I make lore. And thank you for having me on as a guest.
Well, thank you for being on. Huge shout out to Koocai once more, and make sure you guys check him out. He's got really good stuff on there.
So yeah, without further ado, see you guys. The entire podcast out.